Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on Stargirl Season 3, and this is going to be my review for Episode 3, otherwise entitled The Blackmail. Of course, very ominous title, what's going on? But of course, if you don't watch the episode, go away, because we're going to be talking about everything, all the spoilers, of course, so yeah, go away if you don't watch the episode, but if you have, and you are continuing on with the video, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below your various thoughts, reactions, just overall opinions on this episode, any theories and predictions. Moving forward, always curious to where you guys are thinking and just what you thought of the episode as a whole. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video, enjoy the episode, want to show your support, liking Stargirl Season 3 so far, why not drop a like on the video to show all that. So last episode was obviously called The Suspects, Episode 2, and that's because we had the suspects for the murder of the gambler being laid out in front of our eyes, or at least what the show wants to believe are the main suspects, with Cindy and the Crocs being brought up, but mainly the Shade getting the focus for the episode as some old drama between himself and Sylvester, aka Starman, starts to re-emerge and come to the surface a bit more. But by the end of the episode, we do have Sylvester rule out the Shade as an option, with the Shade actually leaving Blue Valley due to some of the recent events with Sylvester, and sort of making Blue Valley not really feel like a comfortable environment to be living in. Now, of course, that could be true. Maybe the Shade is like, hey, I gotta run away from town. They'll find some connecting things. Who knows? Maybe the Shade was the murderer. He admitted to go visiting the gambler in his trailer, so who knows? But by the end of the episode, we do actually get to see that Cindy has the gambler's laptop, which is a sought after item by the JSA because they're gonna have some evidence on it, and they also believe if they find the laptop, they find the killer. So the show's trying to make us think, well, Cindy has the laptop, so Cindy's the killer? I don't know. And we also see that the Crocs are sweating it out. They are nervous over someone finding out something about them, and yeah, the tension grows. But yeah, this episode as a whole, just like a bit of a quick overall review, it really did push forward just the general mystery without really, creating any new leads. Like, I'm still confused as hell by the end of the episode. Well, I'm probably more confused, actually. More confused at the beginning of the episode than I was towards the beginning. Because you could still have, okay, well, the Crocs maybe did it. Maybe Cindy's still involved. I don't even know. The end of this episode made me, like, really question what was going on, while still loving it, and I just can't wait to see where it heads as well. But we do start off this episode with Sylvester hitting the main strip of Blue Valley, picking up from the end of last episode, where he's sort of like pushed to start a new life by Courtney, and like we saw back in season 1, when Courtney and her family first moved to Blue Valley, it's just a bit different than what they're used to, and just experiencing that town and community, it can be a bit full on, I guess, at first. Now, I did like the conversation between Yolanda and Sylvester, because I thought he was going to, like, be a bit upset about someone holding the mantle of his friend, or he didn't approve of her holding the mantle or something like that. But it ended up being a bit of a nice scene, and probably Sylvester in his most calm mood in this episode. Now, we did have Courtney's nice breakfast, obviously a bit of sucking up and a bit of like an apology. But it also has like a side of investigation, which is interrupted by the Crocs and their tofu breakfast bowls. I mean, the thought of that made me uneasy. Like, really? I mean, come on, like, just make some, I don't know, surely some like rice bubbles or something, or like, I don't know, Sultana brand. Do you have that in America? Whatever it is, sometimes that's better than tofu bowls, whatever the hell that is. But I did find it funny when the Crusher was like almost threatening Mike to eat it. I was like, if you don't eat it, I'm gonna punch you in the head. Thought that was pretty funny. Now, the only criticism I have so far this season is that it does feel that like characters like Rick, Beth, and Yolanda are all playing like backseat, and they're not really doing much. I know we're only in episode 3, but it still feels like that. So I'm just hoping that once we get into like specifically the back half of the season, it feels like much more of a group show, because it does really feel centered around, fair enough, Courtney, but also it feels like Starman is getting like a lot of screen time, and just compared to previous season, just feels like the other JSA members, I guess outside of Cindy, are just sort of there but not really doing much. So hopefully that improves over the next handful of episodes, and I guess specifically the back half leading up to the finale. But we do have Rick and Beth driving along, and Beth does get like a strange transmission interruption through her goggles, where it shows that the gambler's bank accounts, and it appears that he was blackmailing someone prior to his death and getting a lot of money coming through. But we see the person who sent that stuff was actually Cindy via the gambler's laptop. However, some files on the laptop are still blocked off by passwords for Cindy. So I guess the big question around that is, well, what do they contain? What secrets do they hold? But speaking of Cindy, we do see her waiting for Courtney at her locker at school, and sort of hoping her anonymous leaks to the JSA have gotten through. And Courtney is just sort of disheartened by the news of the blackmailing due to thinking, the gambler had turned a new leaf, prior, or due to the prior things that she's found out about, and we're trying to find his daughter, all that. But Courtney has other issues at hand. Cameron is being a bit frosty towards her due to her previous ditchings of him, and it just makes her feel a bit, feel a bit bad. But one of the bigger reveals early on that sort of carries on throughout most of the episode is that the payments coming through to the gambler's accounts are from an alias of Crusher, which of course adds even more suspicion towards the Crocs. Now, due to the sensitivity around this with Artemis and all that, Courtney just wants to keep all of this on the down low for now until they know more. With the most important thing being, don't let Sylvester know about this. If that happens, we're in some trouble. Now, Cameron was offered some sympathy and advice from one of his teachers, but his inner issues cause him to lash out. Now, Rick is there as this sort of happens, and it does cause some tension between them. Now, of course, this is the same teacher from season 2 that helped out Rick, and there's a bit of a new rivalry forming there between Cameron and Rick. And Cameron doesn't really take too long to get some revenge or sort of like add some fire or fuel to the fire for this rivalry, with us seeing him use his powers properly for, I think, the first time by shooting an ice spike at one of Rick's car tires. Like, we know, like, there been some, like, the ice stuff going on with Cameron, but I think this was the first time he's actually, like, controlled his powers in any form. And I did see the trailer for next episode, and it seems that that's going to elevate. But I was surprised that he just did that. I thought he was going to, like, sort of, like, just sort of, maybe he had some, like, extra strength or something, and or even just, like, do something that anyone, like, a mortal person could do, and just sort of, like, kick one of his rear view mirrors or something like that. I thought that was going to happen. But yeah, I don't think we get any follow-up about that from Rick, so maybe next episode we get Rick getting annoyed, like, oh god, some idiot threw, like, a thing in my tire, why is it blown up, or something like that. Now, remember when Sylvester was the one to, sort of not find out about the Crocs and the whole gambler drama? Well, Cindy went, screw that, I'm going to do my own thing, and I'm going to have my own little plan going on. But Sylvester shoot down her team up offer, just sort of goes, no, not with Dragon King's daughter, none of that, please. However, that doesn't mean the Crocs are off the hook. It just means that Sylvester now has a reason to go out and be Starman and take the staff out and do some, I guess, release some of his anger. And this is where we lead to that supermarket scene, which was pretty much the entire trailer leading up to this episode, because it's like where we get the big action scene, if you want to call it, with Sylvester just desperate for the Crocs to just like admit to the killing of the gambler. But they don't. They just sort of laugh it off and just sort of, in their own like villainous ways. And instead they play around with him. This sort of like making Sylvester lose it pretty quickly and start attacking them with the cosmic staff, while there are other people in the store. Fair enough if like Sylvester did this, you'd be like, okay, well, you've lost the plot. Like, you're not lost the plot, but you like got a bit overboard if it was an empty shop. But there was still like heaps of people in there. So that's just like, come on, Sylvester, like think. But anyway, regardless of how many people were in the shop, it was still a cool fight scene between these two. Quite a lengthy one as well. Just all this, even like the use of the products within the shop, I thought was really funny as well. Now, I actually did think the Crocs were going to beat Sylvester at one point. Like, they had Sylvester down and out, and I was like, oh, he's gone. And I thought that might have been a bit of a twist there, and it allows them to maybe take Sylvester back to Pat's house and go, look, this dude attacked us in the middle of the shop. We're just trying to get some eggs or something like that. But Sylvester does end up getting the upper hand while causing quite a lot of damage both inside and outside of the shop, blowing up a couple of cars, which did not belong to either of them, I don't think. However, thanks to Mike actually seeing Sylvester leave the house earlier on and knowing that he was going after the Crocs, he does give Pat the heads up and Stripe does intervene before anything too regrettable is done by Sylvester. But because of that, thanks to Pat stepping in and sort of like saving the Crocs do lay out all their information and what they know, where they reveal that the gambler was blackmailing them, but stopped the blackmailing and reversed it. With the reason Crusher went to visit him, like we saw at the beginning of last episode, I think it was, and him acting weird to Pat in episode 1 about Gamble being back in town, because he thought that the blackmailing was going to start again. So like the shade, it appears that all of this is on the clean side, just like weird coincidences where it made the Crocs look guilty, or specifically Crusher. But apparently they're all good, at least in regards to the killing of the gambler. There might be some other crimes that are still under wraps that haven't been solved that involve them, but at least in regards to the killing of the gambler, it appears that they're all clean. They had nothing to do with it. Now, this just leads into another confrontation between Sylvester and Pat, probably the most ferocious of them all so far. And Sylvester's just not happy about Pat protecting the Crocs and stepping in and just sort of siding with them, and the fact that he's let them in, let them move in next door without any sort of like ruckus or protest. And this is just a bit of superiority complex coming over Sylvester again, calling Pat his sidekick. Pat's like, I'm not anyone's sidekick now. I'm Pat. I'm Pat Dugan. And Pat is able to get through to Sylvester that this just isn't a good example for Courtney. Going on to recount what Courtney has been through emotionally since picking up the staff in season one, and also the baggage of honoring Starman's legacy. And, that was a lot of pressure. We watched seasons, like, especially season one, there was a lot of pressure, especially when she didn't know what was going on with her dad, whether her dad was actually Starman or not. And this just, puts Sylvester's focus or mind in order and lets him just, get his mind right. And then he sort of needs to just calm down a bit and think about others. Now, we did have the JSA going over suspects again, and, not Grundy, apparently, because apparently he's still buried, which adds more question marks to the end of this episode as well. Not the Shade, not the Crocs, so who is left? And it really makes you wonder, because, like, the three ones that they shoved in our face last episode were, I guess, Grundy to an extent, but also the Shade, the Crocs, and I guess Cindy. Cindy technically isn't ruled out, but she's... I know, the thing is Cindy involved? Because she was the one sort of pushing the whole evidence against the Crocs to make Sylvester go after them. So I'm like, does she maybe know who it is and wants to protect them? Or maybe she was involved? Or my theory is that she saw what killed the gambler. Like, that's my theory around it, just because of the timing of her being around there and stuff like that, and that the JSA wasn't too far away when the sounds all happened when the gambler was murdered. So I think she saw what happened, but I don't know, maybe she's trying to keep that hidden and protect herself. Now, Cameron does apologize to Courtney for the way he has been acting lately, though he isn't really open to talking about why that is. And they do go for a walk and almost hold hands, but Cameron shuts off and bails away. So I'm assuming it's because his hands will get cold, or he's scared of freezing Courtney's hands and he has no overall control on his powers. Maybe like emotion-wise, like if he starts to feel too happy, too sad, too angry or whatever, his powers can lash out. So he doesn't want to, I guess, freeze Courtney's hand off. So maybe that's why. But yeah, Courtney's a bit sort of confused by it, and it's sort of like the opposite of what's been happening. So Courtney's sort of getting now what had been happening to Cameron in previous seasons, where Courtney would just run off to be Stargirl. Now, Sylvester is sort of going over the JSA's information that they have on the gambler again, just to see if there is like any form of lead as to who the real killer could be, or something that hasn't been tracked. Probably like, this person's out of prison, or this person's still alive, and maybe they might have some issues with the gambler. With him thinking that there must be something that was skimmed over at the crime scene that could be of importance, and he wants to go back. Now, we'll get back to that in a second, because there are a couple of interesting things. One funny, one just interesting. So we see Barbara's asshole of a boss dealt with by Paula. Wonder if that'll be referenced next episode. Maybe he comes in, he's all really nice to Barbara. He's like, hey, I'm your best friend now. Here's a pay rise, everything like that. But the most important thing, which sort of makes me wonder when it's going to start playing out on screen more, is that we see someone watching the security camera feeds like we'd seen in previous episodes, but it zooms or pans out more, and we see who's watching it to a degree. We see someone in a bit of a cloak sort of thing, or whatever you want to call it, and they're wearing leather gloves, and it looks to be Mr. Bones. Mr. Bones wears leather gloves because if they're doing what the comics does, he pretty much has like cyanide skin. Like if he touches you, you die. Like you get cyanide in your system, so you die. So he has to wear leather gloves to stop that. Now, the question is whether he's the one that's connected to the murder, because it makes you wonder, why would he attack the gambler? There's so many things that still have to be answered, but I'm happy that we're not getting too much answered too early on, because it is only episode 3. We have 10 episodes to go. There's still a lot to play out. But speaking of the murder and what's going on and suspects, we do see Pat making Sylvester a new Starman suit, which, was sort of hinted at or suggested that was going to happen in an earlier scene. But we do actually get to see Sylvester going to the crime scene like he was talking about, and he's sort of looking around, nothing's there. But then the camera sort of like goes over his head, and we can hear like I think it was like breathing or like a crunching thing. And I was like, I don't know, this gives me Grundy vibes, but he's picked up by something and then goes away, and all of a sudden is dropped from quite the height, hits the top of the trailer, and is knocked out. And if like we hadn't seen that Grundy was apparently buried, we'd all think Grundy. However, him being like, it feels like whatever picked him up either was really, really tall or just threw him really, really high in the air. Because it looked like he fell from quite the distance or quite the height. And I'm so confused because I'm like, is it Grundy? Is it evil Grundy? Is it doppelganger Grundy or similar thing? I don't know. If anyone has any theories, let me know. But I'm very curious to see how this plays out because I think it's episode like 10 or something is called The Murderer. So I don't think we'll find out until then who actually killed the gambler. Like, I don't know. I'm so confused. I'm so confused, but I'm loving it at the same time because you don't want to know everything too early. But yeah, I just wasn't expecting that to happen. So I don't know what that means for Starman. If he's out of commission for a few episodes, I don't think he's dead. I don't think he's dead at the very least. Um, but yeah, I'm hoping we just get some sort of breadcrumbs because I'm so confused, but I want to be confused, but not completely out of the loop. I still want to have like 3 or 4 names I can put on, but I have 0 at the moment in regards to what picked up Sylvester, unless it's literally Grundy. And I don't think it is because apparently he's buried. We need answers. But yeah, this was another good episode in regards to propelling that story forward, as well as just confusing the hell out of us in regards to what the hell is actually going on. There was some criticisms about a lack of action. Well, this episode had a really, really good action scene. So hopefully we get more of that. I think the guy who directed this episode was the stunt coordinator, and I think he does next episode as well. So maybe there's another cool action scene because he's directing that one as well. I guess let's wait and find out. But yeah, enjoyed the episode. Can't wait to see what comes next. And God, like, will it be as confusing as the end of this one? We'll have to wait and see. And I'm also just really curious as to when we get to see Mr. Bones again for the first time outside of that end credit scene from last episode. I really want to see him again. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like and show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions about everything we went over. Always curious to read what you guys are thinking and any theories and predictions about what the ending of this episode means. Let me know in the comment section down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.